Good evening. Welcome to Player Profiler today. Jack Kavanaugh is not in today, but I am back. I'm Matty Kiwoom, and I'm joined by the OG Theo Greminger. Theo, this is the second Player Profile today we've co-hosted this week. How you feeling?
I mean, we're getting used to it at this point, Matty Kiwoom. I feel like this is like it's like second nature now. We're ready to
Yep.
talk some shop. It's big shout out to our boy Jack Kavanaugh. We're happy to fill in and honored to fill in for Jack, who absolutely crushes it in this seat every single day. So don't worry, he'll be back soon. But yeah, there's a ton to talk about. This is a really fun part of the season. It's like when Memorial Day hits, you know it's on. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like now it's like Bronx Tale. Now you guys can't leave because it's coming up right around the corner, Matty Kiwoom.
It's right there. I mean, we are on the rock and roller coaster. It is off, train is off the station. We ain't stopping now. But I gotta ask, what's squatters' rights on the show? If we just never pack up and go home, can Jack come back?
If we don't log out of StreamYard, I think the show is ours.
I think as long as we just keep squatting right here on Player Profile today, leave all the overlays up. We're home now. Jack, congrats. You're the new host of the Game Plan because I ain't leaving, maybe, because I love talking ball with my man Theo. Today, we're talking backfields. Running back, such a crucial position in fantasy football. And we now have some basketball short clips. We see some hype coming out of OTAs. So we want to talk about handcuff situations, who to target, who to kind of poo-poo, who do you want in those in the ambiguous backfields. Try to paint a little bit clearer picture for everyone who's drafting now in startups or anything that's going to be popping. Like you said, we are off and racing right now. It's go time. But before we dive into the backfields, let's hear from the Podfather as he talks about the Breakout Finder.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools: a database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
Breakout Finder, just a fantastic tool, man. So good.
Breakout Finder is fantastic. I love it. It's a tremendous tool. I think like all of the tools we have are great, but Breakout Finder, like when you really want to compare guys, you really want to get deep in and kind of like look at what you're working with, it's invaluable. I mean, I use it all the time. I used it before I worked at Player Profiler. Like it's top-notch stuff, and it's fantastic, like for the fact that you have it on your phone. Like you can just break it out, like where you're doing a lot of fantasy football stuff is on the go. Shout out to all the moms and dads out there setting lineups, doing waivers. You're doing it on your cell phone, and it looks tremendous on the phone. Like a lot of these apps and a lot of these sites don't look great on your phone. This one does. It looks fantastic.
It looks great. And you could be chasing the kids around, and all of a sudden you need to do something real quick. Boom, boom. Oh, nope. Decline or accept that trade. Do whatever you need to do. It's mobile. It looks great. It's truly just one of the best tools in the fantasy football landscape. Theo, let's get cracking. I'm here in New England. I'm a Patriots fan. If you haven't told, Mr. Wilfork right here. So I got to ask you, okay, they brought in James Robinson. He's not the handcuff, though. He's probably more of that Damian Harris role if he sticks around. But who is the guy that we should look at as the handcuff to Ramondre Stevenson?
The running back that I think both redraft managers and dynasty managers and even best ball managers should be looking at is Pierre Strong. Like Pierre Strong kind of fits the mold of Bill Belichick gets a running back and he doesn't use him at all as a rookie and then expands his role in year 2. Pierre Strong was a small school guy at South Dakota State and was a tremendous producer there. He's also an interesting player where he had a number of touchdown passes from the running back position while in college, which Like, Belichick's cooked up something. Like, you're going to see a Pierre Strong touchdown pass at some point this season. But I think it's funny because you get the media reports out of New England. There's Ty Montgomery people. There's James Robinson people.
Well, I'm a James Robinson person. I can't lie.
Yeah, so James Robinson, it's interesting. Like, but James Robinson, if you're trying to find a direct backup to Ramondre Stevenson, like, to me, it's going to be Pierre Strong. Like, if Mondre went down, James Robinson, if he's healthy, could have a role. But I think like Pierre Strong might have the high value touches. Pierre Strong is a very good receiver, and I think he was heading towards being a thing. But then he took an injury last year. So, like, I don't know. Pierre Strong to me is interesting, and the price is running back 75 on Underdog. I have a dynasty startup that I'm in this week. It's been going on for maybe 10 days or so, and I took Ramondre Stevenson, and I was able to grab Pierre Strong in like the 18th round. So, like, neither the dynasty community or the best ball community, there's just a lot of like confusion with the RB2 spot in New England. Everybody's on Ramondre Stevenson, which we are as well. We love him at Player Profiler, but Bill Belichick's been funny with running backs in the past. I think
his whole career.
So
last year was a true outlier, in my opinion, in terms of usage. And it was also an outlier in that their offensive coordinator was a defensive line coach, defensive coordinator type. So he just kept checking the ball down to Stevenson. I mean, I watched every single Patriots game, and one game that sticks out to me is that Thursday night game in December against the Bills. He had like 7 points going into the last 2 minutes of the game, finished with 14 because he caught 4 passes for 30 yards. I mean, they just kept ding, 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 ding. And I don't think that's going to be the case for Stevenson this year, but I think the offense is better. And I think that's the case you make for Stevenson maintaining value. One thing I do want to add about Strong is the fact how electric is. We saw how electric he was in week 14 against the Cardinals. He only had 7 touches. He had 90 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
He was dynamic. And I will say this for the people who want to believe Ty Montgomery hype. What are we doing here? Are we truly going to believe that Bill Belichick is going to rely on Ty Montgomery in any serious kind of role? It's Pierre Strong, people. If you want to get the guy late, and in your home leagues, you might not have to worry about Strong. You might be able to leave him out throughout the draft and pick him up in free agency, so you don't have to really game plan around that. But in your more serious, sharp startups or redrafts, you're going to want to grab Strong. One extra tidbit: at the East-West Shrine Bowl game, the Falcons and the Patriots, those were the 2 head coaching staffs. And the news came out that the Falcons wanted to just scout the bruisers, the big backs, and the Patriots took all of the scat backs, all of the pass catching guys. And everyone thought, oh, they're going to be targeting a scat back. They want to get somebody for that third down role. Ty Montgomery was not the guy that deterred Bill Belichick from getting one of those players. It was Pierre Strong. It was the guy that is 5'11", 208, runs a 4.3 740, has speed, has burst, has agility, caught 20 balls each of his last 2 years at South Dakota State, wherever it was. This is the guy you want. I'm with you there for the Pierre Strong hype. At running back 75, you can't go wrong with that, and that's someone that could be great insurance for Ramondre Stevenson. From Strong to this next guy I'd like to talk about, he's probably, I would say, maybe I'm wrong here, but probably the most hyped backup handcuff so far in the offseason. Jerome Ford, running back from, he used to play for the Cincinnati Bearcats, now for the Carolina Browns, the Cleveland Browns. What do you think about Jerome Ford? Do you want to roster him? And if you are someone who has, Nick Chubb, do you need Jerome Ford?
Yeah, I think it was telling that they drafted Jerome Ford last year when they had Kareem Hunt and they had Dearness Johnson, and yet they used a draft pick on Ford. Ford's interesting. Ford was an Alabama running back. He transferred to Cincinnati, has a great run with that talented Cincinnati team that, had Sauce Gardner, Desmond Ridder, Alec Pierce. I mean, they were loaded. They had a lot of NFL draft picks, and Ford was like an offensive focal point for them. So, like, Ford didn't have to do anything as a rookie because of the talent around him. But they've announced that they're not bringing back Kareem Hunt. They made a point of saying Kareem Hunt lost a step, which was super weird that they were just kind of throw him under the bus. Dearness Johnson is a Jacksonville Jaguar, and Jerome Ford is sitting in a great spot. Like, we love Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is good value where he's being drafted this year. I think that the Browns offense is heading up. I think Deshaun Watson will be better this year in year 2. I think that they've added weapons for Watson, and Nick Chubb is in a strong spot where Nick Chubb could end up with double-digit touchdowns and be a top 12 running back again. But Nick Chubb is also getting a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And, the tread on the tire starts adding up. Earlier this week on Player Profiler Today, we talked about, Austin Eckler and how he has a lack of tread on the tires. Like Nick Chubb, every year he's been in the league, has been given the rock. So it catches up to you. And Nick Chubb had an extremely productive year last year. But like Jerome Ford can play. And I think that the Browns have more confidence in Jerome Ford than the fantasy community does, because despite the fact that we like Cleveland as an offense, and we think that we know that Nick Chubb is kind of past the age apex, Jerome Ford is only going as running back 59 right now. So I think that he's going about at least 10 spots too low in underdog. And could he develop a weekly role as a change of pace back? I think that there's a possibility in that, where you are probably not using him in your lineup, but he'll at least be a guy that people are going to go and add on waivers. So like in your early redrafts or in your dynasty leagues, he might be a guy that I want to kind of pick up before the rest of my league kind of realizes, what he is.
Yeah, this is why you watch shows like Player Profiler Today. You need to go get Ford now, because you and I might be sitting down having a conversation in a month, and the steam's too much. We're not gonna be grabbing a guy like that. But I mean, look at their depth chart. I mean, John Kelly is the only other running back that's on their depth chart. It's Ford, Chubb, and Felton's really more of a slot guy now. I don't even know what his role is. He sure as hell ain't gonna be the handcuff to Nick Chubb. So yeah, grab Jerome Ford now before it's too late, because this is a guy that's definitely gonna have a ton of steam behind his profile. Another guy that I want to bring up is the running back for the Arizona Cardinals. I think a lot of us thought that they were going to bring in some sort of running back prospect at some point in the draft. They didn't. They really didn't bring in anyone of consequence. And we know that James Conner is prone to getting hurt. So what are your thoughts on Keontae Ingram in 2023?
Shout out to my man, Matty Kiwoom, who's been watching some Terminator and Terminator Part 2.
I was watching it.
He's all about that Terminator life and John Connor.
Come with me if you want to live.
but James Conner is a value right now based on where he's being drafted as a potential high volume guy. The market is drafting James Conner at like RB25 and underdog. Like James Conner is gonna get the ball until like the wheels fall off.
1,000%. Yeah.
But James Conner is also getting a little bit older, and we talked about the age apex with Nick Chubb. You also have that same thing with James Conner, where the clear handcuff is Keontae Ingram. And Keontae Ingram flashed a little bit last year. Ingram was a Texas running back. He happened to be at Texas the same time as Bijan Robinson and also as Roschon Johnson. So he leaves, but he goes to USC. And Keontae Ingram has receiving ability. And this is a guy where he's a clear handcuff right now to a back that's a little bit older and a back who's going to get a ton of work. The fact that we have question marks at the quarterback position for Arizona, like Matty Kiwoom, who starts day one in Arizona? Is it Jeff Driscoll? Is it Clayton Thune? Like, it's ugly.
Is Colt McCoy still there?
No, McCoy's out. McCoy's injured.
Maybe. So it's Driscoll, I would say.
Driscoll or Thune. So either one of those guys, you're going to be getting the ball to James Conner 20 times. Like that's happening for at least the first month of the season. And if he starts to break down, this might be a year where you get 6-7 starts out of Keontae Ingram. And right now he's going as running back 73. He's right next to Pierre Strong, despite being a second-year back. Again, he's a day 3 guy, but he's a day 3 guy with some pedigree. And when he had an opportunity last year, it was like the Eno Benjamin game where Eno had his big game. Keontae Ingram looked very good in that game, and then he kind of faded as the season went on. But he's interesting. Like, I put him as a like Jerome Ford and Keontae Ingram. I think it's almost you can almost bet money on the fact that 6 weeks from now their ADPs are going to be 10 spots higher in terms of the position.
They are probably 2 of the 3 most premier handcuffs. We'll talk about the third in a second. But again, go look at the depth charts on playerprofiler.com. Corey Clement and Tyson Williams are the only other 2 running backs behind James Conner. It's Keontae Ingram if Conner goes down. And they're kind of similar in their performance profile. I mean, he has 6'1", 230, 6 feet, 221. So they're both big backs. Neither have blazing speed, but Keontae was faster than James Conner. And they both have decent speed scores, but they were strong backs who, they had a lot of bench reps in the combine. So I think that their skill set's pretty similar. You mentioned the receiving prowess that he's displayed. So I think that this is a nice handcuff. And if you could get him late, I'm going to get him. I'm also okay with grabbing both Ford and Keontae Ingram naked. I don't need to have Connor or Chubb to target these guys late in my drafts. I will take, Ingram. Ingram's going at about 290 right now in FFPC overall. Yeah. So late in the draft, I'm taking these guys regardless if I need the handcuff or if I just want to bet on an injury to two players that are getting older. So I definitely like that play.
You're sharp, Maddie, and I think that that's a great way of looking at it, where a lot of times the great value in drafts, like we want handcuffs, especially handcuffs. You bring up the fact that very similar as a handcuff is a great thing because it probably means that the offense doesn't have to adjust. And there's an opportunity that you could get a 3-down set out of Ingram as opposed to working in 2 backs. It's still, it takes a little bit of a leap of faith because we haven't seen it.
Right.
But a lot of times especially in big tournaments like the Football Guys tournament, or excuse me, it's the Fantasy Pros tournament now. It's not no longer the football. It's it's the Players Championship, the 350s,
right?
That they're doing the $350 tournament at FFPC. Shout out to Fantasy Pros, not Football Guys. They when you take an opportunity in like the 18th, 19th, 20th round, where you want to add a potential upside handcuff, adding those sort of guys as opposed to the handcuffs that we all want. You think about years past, the amount of people who would draft an Alexander Madison, where you're having to take him in the 10th round, 11th round.
Yeah.
For sure, he's got great potential outcomes, but you're taking him in a potential money round. Whereas your guy, you're being able to take in the 19th, 20th round when other people are taking their defense and their kicker. So I think that taking those sort of upside handcuffs, it's sort of like the drafters who drafted Mike Davis in the 19th, 20th round in 2020 when McCaffrey went down and you got 10 starts out of Davis. It's those kind of handcuffs that you really, when you hit it, it makes the biggest world of difference, because if Keontae Ingram is on the waiver wire and James Conner goes down, that's a 50% type guy.
Easy.
You're dropping you're dropping it all to get a guy like that. So having that guy on your roster, that's exactly the way to play it, Matty Keywom.
If Connor goes down in week 1 and he's done for the season, Keontae Ingram's 100%er. I mean, let's call it what it is.
100%. Yep.
Why not grab these guys late? I say this all the time. Some picks are simply fab savers. Just take them, because now you can protect yourself from having to use all of your fab on a no doubter like an Ingram or a Ford. So grab them in your drafts and see what happens, because when the bullets are flying and the fantasy chaos is ensuing, the amount of startable players that we had no idea or weren't really excited about in June and July become so valuable in August. I mean, in October and November. So get those guys now. The third handcuff that I think is, these are the 3 most probably prestigious and most promising handcuffs. Third being Jaylen Warren from the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are your thoughts on Mr. Warren?
So Warren is not cheap, but I think that the market is smart on Warren. He's running back 46. So he's being drafted in a sense that, like, people know what he is. They know that Mike Tomlin really likes him, that Mike Tomlin tried to make a role for him as the season progressed last year.
Yep.
Like, there were games where Jaylen Warren looked better than Najee Harris, like just on a per touch basis. Warren was an undrafted free agent and he beat out guys in camp. There was guys like Benny Snell that had been around the organization for a while. McFarland and Snell, those kind of guys that had been around the organization, and Jaylen Warren just came in there and dusted them.
Yep.
And it was when Mike Tomlin mentions the guy, like he's got a plan, and Jaylen Warren seems like a guy he really likes. So Najee Harris is there's no question he's the starting running back there. We're not saying that Jaylen Warren is going to take away his job, but I think that there's a chance that Jaylen Warren is a guy that sees weekly touches, and if Najee Harris were to miss time, then Jaylen Warren would be a running back 2 every single week. So I think he would be like the way that the Steelers target the running backs out of the backfield, like Jaylen Warren would absorb all of the targets, and he's shown that he's an effective runner, and he's different than Najee Harris. He's smaller, but he's got some juice to him. So he's a guy that the fantasy community kind of is correctly drafting, but it doesn't mean we should shy away at running back 46 level.
No, for sure. And if Mike Tomlin's throughout his tenure, he's shown the willingness to bell cow whoever. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about who got. Oh, it was Le'Veon, right? Le'Veon got hurt, and it was the Connor show. He didn't need to. He doesn't need a committee to back up his starter. He will go from bell cow
D'Angelo
to bell
Williams.
cow.
D'Angelo Williams.
There it is. Perfect
Yep.
example.
Yeah.
Perfect example that he will bell cow whoever the bell cow is. And believe it or not, Jaylen Warren had 5 games last year where he scored more than 10 fantasy points. So he does have value. And the one thing I want to add about Warren is he may be priced out of our sharper drafts, but in all of our home leagues, people will fade Warren because they know that Harris is there, and that these are the leagues where you can grab Warren regardless if you have Harris or not, and he becomes, again, someone who is 100% fabber if Harris is done for a significant amount of time. So you want to get these guys before it's too late. These next two, let's lump them together because I don't know if we have a whole lot to talk about them, but Chuba Hubbard and Tyler Algier.
Well, Tyler Algier is one that I like. We obviously like the player. He had over 1,000 yards last year. It's going to be the shortest record ever, Matty Kiwoom, for the Atlanta Falcons. But Tyler Algier has the most rushing yards for a rookie running back ever as an Atlanta Falcon.
One and done.
Pour one out, because that's going to get taken over. Maybe that'll get taken over by like week 11. When Bijan crosses over 1,000 yards. But
when we're getting ready for turkey dinner with our families, that record will be donezo.
Yeah, but Algier, I really don't even want to hype Algier because I hope he's a 0 this year because I want to draft some Bijan Robinson. But I think if Bijan Robinson misses time, Tyler Algier isn't immediately an RB2. He was providing that last year towards the end of the year. You had him in your lineup for the fantasy playoffs with confidence. So Tyler Algier has shown it. And I think that he's a valuable handcuff. And in your dynasty leagues where you've spent all this equity on Bijan Robinson, I have bent over backwards to go out and get Tyler Algier on all my Bijan teams.
That's when you need.
You want to be able to sleep at night, Matty Kiwoom.
You have to. I mean, that's insurance. That's premier insurance that you need.
Yeah. So Algier, we know what he is, and I think that we know that Atlanta wants to run the football. To me, it's a little bit more of a guy who would benefit from injury, though. So Algier, I don't think that he's going to have a weekly floor. I think that there's some people who have talked about how Arthur Smith's going to use all the backs, and Arthur Smith is smart in the sense that he praises as Algier whenever. You can't run a locker room and not praise guys who have the kind of heart and production that Algier had last year.
Yeah.
You can't be oh, it's Bijan's backfield because the veterans are going to be like, well, the guy's a rookie. I don't care if he's a top 10 pick.
Right.
So he's making a point of praising Algier whenever he can, but it's Bijan season. And I think Algier's the kind of guy who needs an injury to really, really pay off. So at the end of the day, he's a difficult one for you to spend a lot of equity on in your redraft leagues because he's going to be a little more expensive than a guy the Jaylen Warren that might have a weekly floor,
Yep. Unlike the last three we talked about, Algier is someone I am not targeting one bit in redraft for this very reason. When Bijan Robinson goes berserker in his first month in the NFL, he will be dropped. Tyler Algier will be one of the most dropped players in redraft formats, especially in home league. So I'm staying away from Algier. The price is too high, but he's someone that I would probably go after if he were to be dropped, get him for some cheap fab because I love the Falcons schedule. And if Bijan decides, I've already got 1,500 receiving yards, I'm going to take a week off, Algier could be someone we want in our lineups for sure. So
it's funny. You could draft Tank Bigsby instead of Tyler Algier this year.
Right.
Yeah. And it's that Tank Bigsby has would benefit from an injury and he's got a better chance at a weekly floor of touches and he's cheaper. So I don't know. A lot of times people overpay for last year's production. You don't win. You don't get any extra points because the guy did well last year, Matty Kiwoom.
No, you do not. Unless you play in those wacky leagues, those 0.25 points for last year leagues. I don't think those exist. So probably nothing for past performance. So those are the handcuffs. Now we have some kind of maybe not so much ambiguous backfields, but maybe there's some questions going around. Who should we pick? So we're going to go a little bit rapid fire here. I'm going to give you the who's versus who in the backfield, and you're going to tell me who you would rather roster in 2023. Let's start in the Buffalo backfield. Damian Harris versus James Cook.
Super tough one. I'd like to take shots on both because I think one of them will finish inside the RB2 line with potential for potential to be inside RB20. I'm still on James Cook because I think they want to pass to a running back, but it's hard not to get excited about the fact that Damian Harris might just fall in the end zone a lot. Like Damian Harris won't be Jamal Williams last year, but he could be Jamal Williams in spirit. He could have like 10 rushing touchdowns just based on the quality of the
That's
offense.
exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
So like I don't want to be completely out on Harris, but again, Harris doesn't catch the ball at all. And James Cook could absorb all the Devin Singletary receiving work and end up like sneaking into RB2 land. So I'm probably on James Cook at RB30 in underdog over Damian Harris at RB38, despite the value of taking Harris a little bit later.
Okay. Next backfield.
Where are you on that, Matty Kiwum?
I'm Damian Harris later.
Yeah,
I'll take the slight discount because I'm with you. I like the way the Buffalo Bills have used running backs in competitive games, and I think this year because they took a step back in their defense and their division's a lot tougher, they will be in more competitive games, and I think that means a lot of Damian Harris. He's a reliable running back, and I mean they were there. Remember that hurricane game a couple years ago, Patriots versus Bills in prime time? Damian Harris won that football game for the New England Patriots. And I think, that type of stuff sticks with a team. They remember that. And I think as long as Harris stays healthy, I think he's a sneaky value. So I'm definitely going to go that where I like to draft the guys where I can get some value in front of me, where I think a lot of James Cook's value is not behind him because he didn't do a lot last year, but it's all perception. It's not real yet. It's still kind of a fugazi. So I'm going with Damian Harris there. Let's talk about the next backfield, though, which is, I think this is going to be a landslide victory for one of these running backs in DC. Antonio Gibson versus B-Rob, Brian Robinson.
So in the pre-show, we talked about this a little bit, Maddie, how the ADPs are kind of converging, where right now it's a little bit earlier in the offseason, you were getting like Antonio Gibson about 10 running back spots behind Robinson, but
which
now
is crazy.
It's weird, but there's Brian Robinson people out there. So right now it's Brian Robinson. He's running back 34 on underdog, and Gibson is running back 39. So Gibson's moving up. Robinson's kind of staying steady. There's also the threat of Chris Rodriguez to Brian Robinson.
For sure. Great point. Yep.
Antonio Gibson to me is going to get the receiving work out of the backfield. He's got the cleanest receiving profile by a mile. We've seen him average Antonio Gibson's average double-digit PPR points per game every season of his career. Last year, in like a disaster potential year, he still was 12 points a game. He's gone 14 points per game 2 other times, and he's had double-digit touchdowns twice out of 3 years. So it's easily Antonio Gibson for me. Like I don't want Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's a purgatory pick where you pick him. Like I don't see a whole lot of scenarios where Brian Robinson's going to like crush his ADP. But there's a lot of different things that could happen where Antonio Gibson beats his ADP.
And I don't want to be crass here. I don't want to be mean to him, but if Brian Robinson wasn't shot, I don't think people would be, lobbying for him as much as they are. I think that goes into it.
The Alabama running back thing too, Maddie.
That's true.
People love the Alabama thing. The Alabama thing too. I think like that's something to remember. But yeah, it was a fantastic story and a hat tip to Brian Robinson, like for coming, like not only surviving being attacked and robbed, but he also like showed so much hard work to be able to come back from that so quickly. Like big hat tip to him. Yep. Absolutely a warrior. But in terms of his talent, he's just like, it's a Ron Rivera thing. Like Ron Rivera likes backs like that are a little bit boring, that don't fumble. That's the biggest knock on Antonio Gibson is Antonio Gibson. Like he had that one season where he fumbled a little bit, but the rest of his career hasn't been a very, very too many fumbles. But it was like Scott Turner and Ron Rivera like held a big grudge against him. It's super weird. There's like such a disconnect with like fantasy football versus real NFL football. But now you have Eric Bieniemy there. Eric Bieniemy is, by all intents and purposes, is going to be an upgrade from Scott Turner. I don't think that's a bold statement by me. Like we've seen Eric Bieniemy have tremendous amount of success. Now it helps to have Patrick Mahomes, but I think Bieniemy definitely knows what he's doing. And I think that when it comes down to it, we like Terry McLaurin, we like Jahan Dotson, but we need a consistent third threat on that offense. You also have the fact that this offensive coordinator might not go full like crazy Curtis Samuel usage, where the beginning of the year last year it was like all the manufactured touches. I don't think we necessarily need to see that this year because I think Antonio Gibson at 10 to 15 touches a game for Antonio Gibson, with some of them being targets. I think that's going to be a back that's going to end up putting, potential RB2 numbers, but all Antonio Gibson needs to do is put up RB3 numbers, and he's helping your best ball builds right now from where you're drafting him.
Yeah, Gibson's a lot. He's so talented. And
Yeah.
I think also one last thing to think about when it comes to the Commanders, Rivera, he doesn't have a ton of job security.
No.
And Bieniemy took this job to prove to the NFL that he was not Andy Reid's right-hand man, that he could be his own guy and get himself in line for a head coaching job. They're not going to beat around the bush when it comes to winning football games and using their best players. And I think the nonsense is over. Antonio Gibson time's here.
Bieniemy will be head coach by week 8.
That's also possible. Yeah. Which would be great.
Would be great for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's
Chris Rodriguez, Brian Robinson, they can, take their, they're allotted 2 or 3 carries here and there, and that's it, and give Antonio all the touches he can get. The next backfield I want to talk about is Devin Singletary versus Dameon Pierce. I think a lot of people listening are going to be like, huh? Obviously it's Pierce, but does Devin Singletary have some sneaky value in 23?
So this one, I think Maddie, me and you were the only 2 Devin Singletary people at Player Profiler. I think we like Devin Singletary more.
Yep.
There's a lot of pushback when Maddie and
I've been laughed.
Yeah, and
people have laughed at me.
They yell at us.
Hurt my feelings.
Yeah, they hurt our feelings. But at the end of the day, it's like Dameon Pierce was very, very good last year. It is a new coaching staff. Dameon Pierce was a day 3 pick. A lot of times these day 3 picks the following year get overdrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Post-draft, Dameon Pierce looks like a very big winner. To me, Devin Singletary, at the very least, caps his receiving upside, where it's hard to see Devin Singletary not at least stealing some targets here. So Dameon Pierce is kind of being drafted not at his ceiling, but his ceiling is capped by not being able to be used as a receiver. And then Devin Singletary, we can say it was from being in the quality of the offense, but Devin Singletary produced in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Singletary finished inside the RB2 line. Devin Singletary won you leagues in the fantasy playoffs a couple years back. Devin Singletary has shown the ability. So I don't know. The Houston made some of these weird moves to bring in these veterans, but I think that people are kind of discounting the Dalton Schultz and the Devin Singletary signings. For a organization with a new head coach that's trying to win, to kind of help a rookie QB, I think Devin Singletary could carve out a weekly role. And if anything happens with Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary is a 3-down back there.
Devin Singletary, he's one of those guys. I'm not going to talk about his game and what his style brings. I don't really care. What I care about is this. 4 years in the NFL, he's averaged 12.3, 9, 11.6, 10.5 fantasy points a game. And I know everyone's going to be like, who cares? When the bullets are flying and fantasy football chaos is ensuing, you will take this straight to the bank. And you bring up pass catching ability. He's not known to be a big pass catcher, but he ran the 8th most routes out of running backs last year, had the 12th highest route participation rate amongst qualified running backs, and had a 10% target share. That's not nothing. That's nothing to scoff at. And given where you can get Singletary in comparison to Harris, I would rather have Singletary. I don't think in a vacuum I'll take Singletary over Pierce, but given where you have to select Pierce, I'll go elsewhere then and get my share of Devin Singletary later and storm on my bench and use him for a rainy day.
He's free right now.
He's free.
Devin Singletary is free right now. People are not excited about the Houston offense. And we bring up, I like James Cook, but Devin Singletary kept James Cook away from his targets last year.
Yep.
Nyheim Hines was added,
Mm-hmm.
who has caught a ton of passes in the league, and James Cook was drafted. Yet Devin Singletary still was the target earner out of the running back position in Buffalo. So people are really, really discounting this. It was a oversaturated RB market, so they didn't have to overpay for Singletary. Right. So I guess people weren't too excited about it, but I was okay, well, at least at the very least, this makes me not want to like Pierce that much.
Great point. And again, it gets probably overblown, but again, regime change. They chose Singletary. They did not choose Dameon Pierce. And that doesn't mean everything, but it certainly means a little something. So now I want to bring up two backfield that's really a Royal Rumble of sorts, a triple threat match. This isn't a 1v1. This is a 1v1v1 type thing. So let's talk about the Chicago backfield. What back do you want for 23 when it comes to Roshan versus Khalil Herbert versus Deontay Foreman? Who are you going to plant your flag on?
Well, it's super interesting because last year when the Bears offense was pretty bad, bottom 10 in the league, you had David Montgomery finishing as running back 24 in points per game and running back 27 overall. Yet nobody wants to take a shot on this Chicago backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Herbert, since the NFL draft, has slipped. So like, we like Roshan Johnson a ton, but Khalil Herbert, is the person who has familiarity with the coaching staff versus a draft pick versus a free agent signing. So like, Khalil Herbert, I think, has the leg up in camp until he gets beat out. He absolutely can get beat out, but where he's going at running back 40, he's attractive. But I also like Roshan Johnson, as do you. That's a player we're high on at Player Profiler.
For sure.
And Deontay Foreman had 900 yards rushing last year, and he's free. So I think that the way you handle this backfield is, Matty Kiwoom, I want to take a shot here because none of these guys cost me anything, especially in underdog. And there's a chance that I think not at least, but one of them is going to hit RB2 land because the offense is going to get better. They've improved the offensive line. They've added DJ Moore. Chase Claypool is a year in the system, and Eberflus is a year more experienced, and so is Justin Fields. So, like, I don't think the offense needs to make a meteoric rise. Mm-hmm. Could the offense finish as a top 10 offense? Sure. But I think that they are more likely going to be like smack dab in the middle. But smack dab in the middle of scoring would be a huge improvement from last year. So, like, the running back spot here is getting completely beat up, and take a shot on one of those guys.
Oh, gee, let me ask you this. Does Travis Homer, is he going to factor into this equation at all? They brought him on board, too.
Our man, Jack Kavanaugh, took some major heat on Twitter for tweeting out that he thought that Deontay Foreman could be inactive. I don't know. Like, I'm not – like, Travis Homer got, like, 3-something million over 2 years.
Yeah.
And Deontay Foreman got like a little less than 2 million. I think at the end of the day, none of these guys have the sort of contract or draft capital that they're going to be given anything. Like, we love Roshan Johnson was a 4th round draft pick. That's the highest draft pick of any of these guys.
Yes.
Khalil Herbert was a 6th rounder. Deontay Foreman's on his 3rd team or 4th team at this point.
4th team.
4th team.
Yep.
And Travis Homer is Travis Homer. So it's like, I don't, I'll tell you what.
When it was Travis Homer week last year.
I don't think yeah, exactly. Travis Homer, I'm never going to trust him again. It was Travis Homer week. I was all excited. It didn't happen. It was terrible. But yeah, the one I'm not betting on is Travis Homer. I think we can move on from that one.
let's get him out of here.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here.
No doubt about it. I did buy into a little bit of Foreman shares pre-draft, thinking it was just super cheap. I could get a guy, but then they brought in Roshan. And Roshan, the X factor for Roshan is, by everyone you talk about him that's been in a room with this kid, is he can command every room that he's in. He demands so much respect and commands everyone's attention that I do think is a possibility he takes over. And I'm excited about him. You're excited about him. So I'm going to I'll take Roshan if I got to take the 3. But Khalil Herbert, given the ADP, he's been super efficient, and he could be a guy that doesn't need the touches. They could kind of facilitate through Roshan and have Herbert be fresh and kind of just stick to the role that he's been doing so well with.
I don't, and I think that it's also there's maybe a perception that this is going to be like a running back by committee. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. I think it's like a lot of times we expect a committee, it's going to be a guy at least getting the majority of the touches. So yeah, if you want to take Roshan, and I'll certainly have a lot of Roshan in Dynasty.
Yeah.
But I think that if Khalil gets more and more beat up, he's interesting because he does have familiarity with Eberflus. If they didn't draft Roshan, I wonder if Khalil would be right now like 5 spots higher. And again, we like Roshan, but he was a 4th round pick.
Right. I think, that's the cautionary tale is, he could be something for a few weeks this year and they bring in Rocket Sanders in the 2nd round next year.
Yeah.
And they're all on fire now. None of them matter.
Yeah.
So
none of them.
But it's cautionary tale.
Yeah,
just for
but
2023.
we just need
Gotta
this
pick a
year.
guy.
Just need this year.
You just gotta use this year. These running backs come in mercenaries, year to year investments. So that's kind of how I'm starting to look at it. I don't know about you, but I think that's kind of how it's becoming. Other than the studs, the no doubters. But
Yeah,
we talked.
It's not even safe with Ken Walker anymore.
It ain't safe for anybody out here
It's
on
not
these running
safe.
back
Yeah, yeah.
streets.
Be
It ain't
careful. Be
safe for
careful,
these
Matty
boys on the
Kiwa.
streets.
Be
Get
careful. Be
down,
careful.
baby. Be careful. The last backfield we're going to bring up, we talked about this earlier when we were on Player Profiler today together earlier in the week. Devon Achane's looking great in Miami OTAs. How do you see this backfield playing out? You got Devon Achane versus Jeff Wilson versus Raheem Mostert. I think we know who you're going to play your flag on. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm an Achane guy.
Yes.
So like Achane right now is going right around running back 36. So he's going right at the RB3 line, the very end of it. He's going to be a guy that steams up as the summer moves along. We already get the positive reports. We talked about on Player Profiler today how he was stand out for his receiving work.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's praising him. But again, if you don't like Devon Achane, Jeff Wilson is running back 59. So Jeff Wilson's going 13 spots behind Jaylen Warren right now. And like Jeff Wilson, as soon as he came over to Miami, had success.
Yep.
So like Mostert, Wilson, like if you think that I'm wrong and you think that Achane is nothing, then take a shot on one of these veteran running backs. But at the end of the day, it's Achane. It's Achane, Matty Kiwoom. That the train has already left the station.
Listen, OG, you know that I'm not a huge fan of Achane, but it's Achane. It's Achane with a bullet. And for all the reasons you just expressed, and I'm going to add one extra reason. If the Dolphins decide, you know what, let's bring in Kareem Hunt. Let's get Dalvin Cook. Let's say Dalvin Cook is cut by the Vikings, and they go, let's bring him in. Dalvin, Kareem Hunt, those guys kill Jeff Wilson and they kill Raheem Mostert. Those guys do not kill Devon Achane. Will it lower his ceiling? Sure. But at his price, at running back 3, he doesn't need 20 touches. He needs 10 to 12 touches. He could be ultra effective with those touches in this offense. I mean, OG, is he going to have a single stacked front this year, given the receivers in the Miami Dolphins? Will Devon Achane have to go against a stacked front one single time?
No, and I think that the fact that Tyreek Hill and Waddle are so fantastic, those guys might be like last year. Those two combined for over 50% target share. There's a chance it goes up this year. Like everybody thinks these things come back, but like those two guys are have to be accounted for by these defenses. Like Achane, if he catches 60 balls, he's going to be incredible for us, especially with the price we're paying. If he catches 50 balls, he's still going to be like Rashad White level last year.
Right.
So like Achane has a lot of outs. He's super interesting. And I think that Miami Dolphins offense, it's only year 2 for Mike McDaniel with Tua. Tyreek Hill year 2. So there's a lot of upside with that offense.
And also from those videos I saw, Tua's looking thick boy Tua.
Yeah,
not in a good way.
It's not a good way. He looks like the lower body got real thick. He looks a little like a lot of times, like it's funny because these pictures from camp, like it's like an angle. Like you'll see another angle tomorrow and he'll look normal. But that particular angle where people were like excited about, they're like, Tua's been lifting. I'm like, what's he been lifting? Like
he hasn't been lifting.
Yeah, he's been doing singles. He's been doing deadlift singles.
You got kids. I got kids. So we've watched Moana a ton. We want Tua to look like The Rock in real life, not The Rock's character Maui.
That's right. We want Dwayne Johnson. We want some definition. I want to see some like hamstring definition, Matty.
Yeah. It can't just like kind of look like a
sweeping quads. I want sweeping quads.
I want more AJ Dillon and less Matty Kiwoom, if you catch my drift.
That's right.
All right, that's going to put a bow on Player Profiler today. Theo, let everyone know where they can find you on socials and where they can get you work.
Well, you can find me on Player Profiler. You can find me on the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast. You can find me on First Class Fantasy. I've got my new press coverage podcast coming out.
Can't wait.
Sometime next month. And you can find me with Matty Kiwoom more and more on these guest spots where we run pure, when we podcast together, Matty. So we got to do this again real soon. Let everybody know about your fire podcast that you've been putting out.
Let's go. Yeah, I got the game plan this Saturday. Got Jason Allwine on there. Obviously, you got the Trade Gods with Jason as well. He's my co-host there. And you can find me on Twitter. I am at Matty Kiwoom. And remember, it was always Antonio Gibson.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.